Woo, it's March and I've already gotten platinum status on my favorite airline. Oh, wait, it's March and I've already gotten platinum status on my favorite airline. Ugh.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. Man, am I psyched to have everyone here today with me because I'm getting super pumped. We're getting closer and closer to the big New Orleans Jazz Fest weekend, and I want you guys to be able to come along with me. That's why I've partnered with great folks at Joyful and the Jung Hotel to announce that we have got a great contest going on right now where you folks can win a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to join me in New Orleans during New Orleans Jazz Fest. It's a $3,800 value, and I want you guys all to be involved. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to check the show notes in order to get the link in order to click over. But if you want to try it, it's joyful.com/page/experience-contest. Good luck on that one. I wish you the best of luck, but I really do want you to enter this contest and participate. And more importantly, share it with your friends and your family. That'll give you potentially more chances to win, and it'll get them involved too. So one of the things I like about the Jung Hotel down in New Orleans, it's a luxury property, and I like the luxury kind of world. Maybe I might not be a luxury guy, but I aspire for luxury hospitality. And that's why I found myself another general manager today that we could speak to about luxury. That's Mr. Guntram Merle, and he is with the St. Regis in Atlanta. Guntram, great to see you today.
Yeah, well, great to be here.
Hey, congratulations, because, what precipitated our conversation today, Guntram, is a 10th anniversary of the hotel. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, 10 years as St. Regis in Atlanta, and 10 years certainly as one of the most successful hotels here in this market. We are certainly very proud of this.
I have no idea. I've never been to that property before. Now I'm feeling really super foolish for never having visited your hotel before. Maybe to get us started, tell us a little bit about the property and your point of view in terms of running a New Orleans-based luxury property.
Yeah, so the St. Regis Atlanta, like we just said, 10 years in this market. It's actually located in Buckhead, Atlanta, right? So it's an enclave about 7 miles from the city of Atlanta, with really phenomenal shopping, a lot of corporate housing here. That a lot of institutions that are around this.
It feels to me, Guntram, that should be downtown Atlanta. Because when I'm in downtown Atlanta, I'm craving the experiences I could have out in Buckhead. So you're
right.
You're really in the hotbed of what's really going on in the Atlanta market. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry to interrupt you. Please continue, sir.
No, please, right, and like phenomenal shopping, phenomenal restaurants in this market, right? Like really 3 big shopping malls, one really very high end, walking distance from the hotel. Around 10 years, right? We are 151 rooms. We have a little more of a traditional feel of a hotel to it. You walk in, and really it's reminiscent of a great southern home, southern estate, with 2 curving staircases as you come into the lobby. So very, 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 very a luxury sense of arrival when you come to our hotel, right?
Right.
We did actually just go through and reimagined our guest room products with really an emphasis of staying in that southern feeling, but a contemporary feel to it. Really driven by technology and a very simple but elegant approach to our hotel.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. So, how long have you been general manager of this particular property?
So I've been here for 2 years, right? And I always say, right, this is one of those hotels, right? Everybody wants to go and work at and wants to be the general manager. So for me, This is a little bit of a dream job.
Yeah. I always wonder, because the luxury hotel universe is a very different thing than other, hotel industry segments that we've put on it. It's a different mindset. It's a different way of being, and typically it's a different way of training and preparation in life in order to make it to that point. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess here, Guntram. I'm going to say that you're not an Atlantean native.
I'm not a local, right? That's correct. I'm actually
Right.
I'm actually Austrian, right?
Cool. Yeah. So, I see Europe and Austria and places like that as a real birthplace of modern luxury hospitality executives. It seems to me that a lot of folks that do achieve the luxury hotel general manager position or managing director type of position seem to come out of Europe in greater frequency, I think, than here in the United States. First, I don't know if I'm right about that. It's just an observation that I've been making. But what is it about European hospitality that you think drove you down that particular channel of success?
I would tell you, I think it has to do with the training or the educational process that you go through, right? When you look at the U.S., when you look at U.S. education specifically to hospitality, I think it's very focused on management. It's very focused on a business approach. While when you go to a hotel school or do that kind of education in Europe, it still is very, very much a product delivery, service knowledge, product knowledge, food and beverage related, right? Of course, you have the business aspect of it, but you get a little more of that. You get a little more of that training and a little more of that traditional hospitality delivery that the great hotels in Europe are known for.
Right. Interesting. So, did you start off on a track in the luxury hospitality sphere?
Yeah. I did a hotel school in Austria, and then eventually that led me through really food and beverage, through restaurant culinary, through various hotels in Europe. I spent quite a bit of time in Asia Pacific, specifically Australia.
Right.
And then came to the US in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, so you've been here a
but
while.
I've always worked. Yeah, I've been here a while. But I always worked. All my experience really is in the luxury field. I have one exception there, but one big business hotel. But really, it's the luxury field that I've came from.
Now, I want to definitely talk about the state of luxury today, but the first thing I want to ask you is, what is the difference in the luxury environment in terms of what people expect and are looking for in Europe and Asia versus here in North America and the United States?
So I think luxury. Few things with luxury, right? I think luxury in its essence, the way I feel about it, it's a little bit like real estate. Real estate is location, right? Mm-hmm. In luxury, it's personalization.
I was going to say the way it makes you feel, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's really an emotional engagement that you have. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, I really don't think that there is in that specific aspect, there's really not a difference between Europe, Asia, or the U.S. I think if you as a customer travel to these destinations, I think your expectation vary a little bit, right? If you go and spend time in a let's say in a grand hotel in somewhere in Europe, right? You're up in Gstaad at the Palace or any of those hotels, right? I think you would expect a little more formality to those places, to some extent. Mm-hmm. If you're in Asia, if you go to an Asian hotel, I think you would really look very, very distinctively for that very personalized service attitude that is so prevalent when you visit our hotels in luxury hotels in Asia. And I think in the U.S., right, it is, the way I put it, it's still about personalization, but it's also about efficiency, which is usually expected in any of those hotels. But I think luxury hotels in the U.S., not only do they provide phenomenal service, but they are super, super efficient, right? I think that's one of the things. To you as a guest, if you want something, it's at your fingertips, right? It's there. They know how to deliver this, or we know how to deliver this, right? Right,
and that makes sense to me because while things are changing now, for the majority of my career, one of the things that we've been talking about is time is the true luxury. And you're really bringing that into it. These executives or people on vacation, they really just need to get that time back, and they're relying on you and your team in order to be able to help them achieve that.
Absolutely. It's about time and it's about access, right? I like telling my teams the story when I kind of worked in a luxury hotel in Europe, right?
Yep.
And if you would stand in the lobby, I was a bellhop at one point, right?
Of course,
you would stand in the lobby
awesome.
And somebody would walk in with a piece of luggage and they would roll it themselves, right? it was completely unacceptable, right? You would have to go over, and we called it aggressive hospitality. You have to take that piece of luggage off the customer, off the guest, and carry it through for the guest. Think about this, right? I have business people coming in on a Tuesday evening, and they come in with a roll-on. If you apply the same concept of service and luxury, they would look at you because they don't want you to touch their roll-on, right?
That's right.
Not what they're looking for.
And
right?
that's kind of the trick of luxury today, because what means luxury to one person doesn't mean luxury to another person. I'm in the latter group of luggage people, right? I'm on the road 100 nights a year. My bag's got wheels. I don't need somebody to take it to my room for me, right? But it doesn't mean that that's not something that other people really would find to be something that they believe to be the luxury experience. So then I got to ask you this question. How do you tell the difference between those people and what they sense luxury to be? And then how do you meet them to make sure that even though they may not have specifically verbalized to you what it is, that you understand what luxury means to them and then deliver on that luxury experience to them?
And I think you said it exactly. I think you have to go and evaluate trip persona, right? You have to understand what the guest is here for. Is it a business guest? Is this particular guest here for an event in a hotel? Are they there on leisure? Are they going to spend a weekend at the pool? You really have to understand. So what really is important is research before. Like, we really try to reach out to our guests and understand why they are coming. Mm-hmm. Our butler teams, contact guests.
Right now. Go for it.
So it's really about trip persona. It's really about what is that particular guest at your hotel for? Are they there for a business trip? Are they there for a weekend trip? Are they there for leisure? Are they there right? And what I understand that really is important that we do research. So we contact our guests and we ask, why are you coming? What preference do you have? How can we make your stay better before you even arrive, so we understand what you're here for. But I think important to understand is, right, that the same guest can be here for different reasons.
Of course.
Somebody can be here from a Wednesday to a Thursday on business, and then on a Saturday they're here to enjoy leisure. So
and then that changes their entire point of view and what their expectations are, and they're certainly not going to send you a memo about it.
No, right. I wish sometimes.
I know, right? It'd be making it a lot easier.
That's right.
But I guess that's the whole trick of delivering a great luxury experience through hospitality, is understanding the nuances of this whole universe and really being able to do that anticipation part of it, right?
Clearly, right, and really, it's one of my bosses that I grew up with that I highly respect. That was kind of a mentor to me. Always used to say, "Guntram, you listen, but you don't hear." So it's very, very important to go and listen to what the guest actually tells you, right? And picking up on those nuances to be able to provide that exceptional and that really anticipatory and really surprising service.
Right.
That, you really want to provide something to the guest that the guest didn't even know that they wanted.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's really when you achieve that wow factor. So how do you then, Guntram, go ahead and figure out how to anticipate people, because you learned that valuable lesson early on, right? So how do you pull it off every single day, and how do you instill that virtue and skill set within your team at the St. Regis Atlanta?
So really, the most important thing is selection, right?
Right.
Not everybody can work in luxury, right? You do have to have you have to have a sense of really a connectivity with guests. You have to be able to go and relate to people, right? So we take a lot of pride and we take a lot of effort in selecting our staff. So I think that's the first hurdle there, the first step that you need to do. You also really have to teach your staff what this actually looks like. Like, if you never had good food, how do you know what good food tastes like, right?
Let me tell you, I complain about that all the time. It's like all these people say, go to this restaurant and it stinks. I'm like, well, you guys don't have a concept of what good food is. So that drives me crazy.
Exactly.
I get where you're coming from.
So I would tell you, one of the interview questions that I ask my staff is when you provided great service. I said, when was the last time you received great service, right? And I'm telling you that what people perceive as great service is what I would think should be the expectation, right? And really to go and teach them, hey, what does great service look like? And you have to do it through examples. You have to do it through role play. You have to do it through them experiencing like anticipation of service or really looking at preferences. Now, we asked some of our staff to go and tell us at one point in orientation, right? What's your favorite chocolate, right? And then at one point we'll deliver that favorite chocolate to them at an unexpected moment, just to go and, hey, listen, here, this is how you found something out that was very minor, really. But really, now you experience this because now you have this piece of chocolate that you like, or this piece of candy that you like on your table in the morning when you arrive for your third day of orientation.
Right, and I'll tell you, Guntram, the thing about that is it's those little things that really mean a lot more. We're in a highly competitive hospitality environment, and you're a great professional, but there are thousands of great professionals just like you around the country creating great experiences. So for me, it always becomes down to those little details, those things that others might not be paying as close attention to differentiate your experience, because you're not going to differentiate it on the bed or the furnishings in there, because luxury winds up being luxury after a while, right? So am I making sense here with where I'm going?
It's you hit it. You absolutely hit it right on the spot. It's really about that small intangible. One of the things that I tell my staff, it's also about kindness, right? It's really about be kind, and you really don't know when a guest arrives what is happening, how their travels went. You have to understand, and you have to be kind, and you have to be a little bit generous, right? Generous with your time, generous even to an extent how you provide service to the guest. So you really have to remind our staff, right? You have to not only be polite, use the kind of language, but kindness is I think one of the things that I always try to stress with my team for them to understand when you deal with our guests.
Right. So how do you keep making sure that you're able to continue great hospitality as that notion of luxury changes over the year? We talked about that time component of it, but I feel like luxury has changed since the Great Recession. I say this a lot in my speaking engagements that I do throughout the world, that after the Great Recession, we seem to have reset from being a materialistic kind of world to one that's really craving experiences on a more deeper level. The whole idea of being able to experience something and then come home and tell people, you're not going to believe what I just did. So how do you focus what you're doing to change to better meet that experiential mindset as opposed to the, hey, let's just have nice stuff in our hotel mindset?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting question to answer. The way I would put it to you, right? First of all, there's so much luxury out there that speaks to specific lifestyles, right?
Right.
So there is the lifestyle hotels that do provide luxury service, in our brands, for instance, the W brands or the Edition brands, right? But I would tell you this, right? I think that for me, in our brand, in the St. Regis brand, and specifically in this hotel, we do draw a lot of heritage, right? We are a hotel that draws on the heritage of the St. Regis New York, right?
Right.
And what the St. Regis New York stood for, right? So we really try to, if our guests that stay here do enjoy that portion of our service delivery that draws on some of those heritages or
right.
those experiences that come out of
that more traditional sense of luxurious hospitality.
Right? Like we do have butlers, right? Is it a very traditional formal butler in a tuxedo? No, it's not. But the experience or the services they provide, right, come from that history, from that point of view, right? And we have rituals that speak to this, right? We for instance, the St. Regis New York really is the birthplace of the Bloody Mary. So we as a hotel, right, it's a ritual for us to have a Bloody Mary, and that's specific to our brand. We do the champagne savoring every day in our hotel at 6 p.m. We invite our guests down to come and enjoy that moment, have a glass of champagne on us. So it's really that sense of place, that sense of history that specifically makes, I think, our brand not only enjoyable, relevant in a sense that it draws on the history, but puts whatever the history has taught us in hospitality in a contemporary way.
How do you motivate your staff?
I think when you look and when you talk to your teams on an ongoing basis, right? I think our team, specifically in this hotel, they get enjoyment out of delivering an exceptional product and exceptional service. For me, it's important that I make sure that we as a hotel stay relevant, that we continuously reinvent what we do, really look at our delivery, look at our processes, look at what our guests demand, and then really relate it on an ongoing basis to our staff. Have conversation, not only from my end, but I learn a lot from what they see on a day-to-day basis. Right. So I think ongoing conversations, really, you have to be, by the end of the day, right? You have to be on the floor. You have to be out there. You have to experience this with the team. And if you do that, the team will stay engaged.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense to me. So now that you're celebrating 10 years at the of the St. Regis Atlanta being there, is there anything you're doing to particularly acknowledge this occasion?
So we actually just went through a reimagining of our guest room. So we're also celebrating that milestone for the hotel as well. As we go through this, we have some celebrations that we will look at. But again, I think our goal and our aim is to be the luxury leader, certainly in our market, and to make sure that we stay relevant. To really look at what are some of the trends that are out there. How can we incorporate this into our hotel without losing our history and our place in where we are. So it's an ongoing quest for us to go through that.
Yeah, and speaking of that ongoing quest, one area that is very nuanced is how do you tell the difference between what is a fad and what is a trend when it comes to luxury? Because at some point you have to pull the trigger to move forward on a new idea or simply not to.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect example, right? I'm sure you will remember those days where you had water menus, right? You had a menu and had 10 different sparkling waters and 5 different still waters on.
Yeah,
right?
I'm happy with tap water. Yeah, totally.
It sounded great. I will tell you, we look at everything we do a little bit from a conservative approach, right? Mm-hmm. Does it really fit into our brand? Does it fit with the history of who we are? Is it really something that our guests want to experience with us? So we take a cautious approach before we really step into any of those things. Like I give you an example, right? For our guest rooms right now, we made a choice not to do collateral in our guest rooms anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Everything that we offer to our guests. From a collateral perspective, like a private dining menu, right? That used to be a leather-bound piece on the desk, right? We don't do this anymore. We actually have it on an iPad, and you record it from an iPad, right? And it's not like I'm not saying this is the newest and greatest idea. There's a lot of hotels that do this right now. But for us, it was a step that we really had to consider. We had to consider who is our guest, mm-hmm. What is their preference? Are they comfortable with going to the technology? And we implemented it after a while, but after a while and a thorough thought process. But it worked out very well. But again, we didn't just jump in. We made sure that we talked to hotels and that had that implemented what their experiences were, and so we are very cautious when we make sweeping changes like that.
All right, I've got one question because you're in Buckhead. You're a luxury hotel in Buckhead. There are 2 or 3 people in Buckhead that might have a few bucks that are getting married, and I'm sure they're doing a ton of weddings at your property. How has that market changed? What are those couples looking for today, and something that might be different? I've never talked about weddings before on this show, but for some reason I feel compelled to. Not that I'm getting maybe I'll bring my wife down there and we'll have a second wedding or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the wedding market in general, if I even in the luxury market, right, has changed a little bit. That there is certainly there's certainly a trend towards venues rather than what I would call a traditional hotel venue, right?
Right.
So a lot of brides these days, they go out and, at farms, at different things. I think with us and with our hotel specifically, it is still a customer or a guest that looks for a more traditional venue and more traditional experience in really the venue or the hotel itself. I think what really has changed a lot is what the actually service or the food and beverage specifically is
right.
on weddings. And there is, it has to be a very, of course, a high quality experience, but it becomes really the demand for what is a restaurant experience, right? What does that look like from both the food side, the beverage side? So it's much more curated. It's much more specific to some of the experiences and likes that the couple has, right? They will come and they will show us, we love this style of food in this type of restaurants, right? We like to have the menu a little bit curated along those lines. But our hotel still is a little more of a traditional wedding venue that you would expect from a luxury hotel as we are. It's a beautiful setting, and I think there is still quite a large there's a large business or a large group of people that just do want to go and do weddings in this particular environment.
Yeah, there sure are. So thanks for answering that. Now, before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you feel that you wanted to discuss before I let you do a good shameless plug for yourself and the property?
No, I think hotels and luxury hotels, for me personally, is where that whole hospitality environment comes to full flourishing. It's where you still can get those personalized experience, where you can still get those really very detailed experiences, where quality is absolutely at the top of everything we do, from what we buy on product, the way we deliver product, the way we serve it, the knowledge about product, that the products and services that we provide. And I think that really is why I personally love working in luxury. For me, it's always been about that, right? I'd love to be in a place that really is detailed, that provides that very, very deep knowledge in everything that we do. And I think that's luxury for me, right? You have to have a nice hotel, you have to have a great rooms product. You have to be that place. That's really for us to start playing in that environment. But then it really comes down to knowledge, to the delivery of it.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. I think that's perfect. So how can we find the hotel if people want to come by and visit and say hello and give us?
Well, we are located in Atlanta, Buckhead, right? We have a beautiful setting. St. Regis Hotel. You can certainly look us up on our website. You'll see some great pictures of our hotel, and we are a very tall building. If you just look out for a building in a place, you can't really miss it, right? But Buckhead, Atlanta, right? That's where we are located.
Beautiful, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. I want to thank all of you guys for listening, and stick around because after the commercial break, we've got another incredible interview for you. So stay around. We'll be back, and remember this one thing: this is what space smells like. We'll see you guys soon.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Glenn here. So for the past couple of months, I've been sharing with you all the exciting things that have been going on with Red Roof. And today, I want to talk to franchisees looking to get in on the explosive growth of the extended stay segment. You know how much I love that segment. I'm really behind this segment. And Red Roof is getting behind this segment too with Hometown Studios by Red Roof. They're introducing it right now in a phased launch with over 30 properties across more than 20 markets with over $50 million in renovation. So they're betting big on these apartment-style studios that are going to offer the amenities guests really want today, such as upgraded decor, a kitchenette, full-size refrigerator, on-site laundry facilities, free Wi-Fi, of course, and more, and more, and more, all while continuing Red Roof's tradition of clean, comfortable accommodations at an unmatched value. And speaking of value, I'm pretty sure USA Today readers for the second year in a row named Red Roof the best budget hotel brand in America. So franchisees get that amazing brand awareness that customers already have, plus a seasoned management team and a richest-in-class loyalty program with more than 2.5 million members. And that just happens to be the least expensive for owners, too. Man, these guys are crushing it. And that's in addition to their award-winning marketing department and a dedicated website based on their fastest in-class with mobile-first technology. Finally, with Hometown Studios by Red Roof, you'll be working with a company with a franchisee satisfaction of 94%. How great is that? And those franchisees will tell you genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's how Red Roof does business. Get in on a new way to extended stay. Visit redrooffranchising.com or give them a call at 888-473-8861. That's 888-473-8861.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. Super excited, as always, to be with you here each and every week. Man, I've been traveling all over the world in 2019, and I've been having a great time because I've had the opportunity to go and experience all of these awesome new hotel concepts that are coming out there, and I'm really learning about a side of the business that you and I probably didn't even realize were there for the longest time, but has suddenly been thrust into the mainstream. And I'm talking about a new way of people staying together, the whole idea of being in it together, the whole idea of creating an instant community wherever you go. And I keep bringing up the words community wherever I talk because I think it is so essential to the future. And that's why I have Mr. Philip Bates with me here today. He's the co-founder and CEO of Bode, a new brand. Well, not new-ish. You opened in 2015 in Nashville, but you seem to be really ahead on all of these issues that I'm thinking about every single day, and you were there first. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's great to hear, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the best place to start is let's maybe share a little bit about what the concept of Bode is, and then we can talk about some of these bigger issues that I see flying around.
Absolutely. Well, you touched on a lot of the issues. I shouldn't even say issues. I'd say opportunities that Bode is addressing, and that is that when you look back at the history of hotels, we feel like they've largely been centered around the individual traveler, hitting center stage with Conrad Hilton and sort of roadside motels and things like that back in the 40s and 50s, evolving up through the timeshares, through the boutique hotels, through the lifestyle hotels. And now we've most recently seen a proliferation of things like Airbnb, shared housing. And what we think that has unlocked is really a massive pent-up demand of people wanting to travel in parties of 3 or more. That's with their friends, their family, their colleagues. And while there certainly are really good attributes about vacation rentals and things of that nature, they often leave you wanting some of the experiential elements that kind of boutique hotels have. And that's really how we arrived at Bode, which, similar to what you alluded to at the beginning, Bode is how we want to travel. We travel with our friends. We travel with our family. We want a certain level of design. We want a certain level of vibe. We also want a certain level of consistency, cleanliness, and things of that nature. And that's really what Bode's about. We call it group lifestyle traveler. That's travelers who are drawn to kind of more boutique, authentic, trendy hotels, but are traveling in groups.
Right. And that's that's been the rub in traditional hotels,
Correct.
right? It's like you have these rooms. They're great to stay in, and I always have a terrific time. But I always found, like, I go to all these industry conferences all over, for example, and man, my buddies and I might want to hang out in the room for a little bit. And it just becomes weird and awkward because there's no place for us to be unless we're lucky enough to have a balcony and the weather's right.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
So what you're doing is you're creating a space that allows your groups to hang together in a private common area as well as creating areas downstairs that are designed for sociability.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so right now there's two product types that exist. There's the traditional hotel, and then there's kind of residential-like products. Right. And we're endeavoring to, not only in the rooms, but also in all the common areas, create spaces that enhance the group experience. And so from our bars to our fire pits to our ping pong tables to our concert stages, all that is to foster and enhance group interaction.
Right. Okay. So I have to do a dad joke here, so I apologize for you. But it's a good thing you don't have an ego and named it after yourself, because Bates Motel probably wouldn't go over too well.
No, but we're not scared of that.
Yeah.
We like to make lemonade with the lemons.
Yeah. So. I just wouldn't highlight the shower experience if that was the case. If you went with that name, but all right. I like to do timely references here because 1950s Alfred Hitchcock movies are very timely. So back to being serious though. One of the things that I'm discovering as I travel and learning about some of the changes that are happening in society, I think are really leading down the road to where you wound up. Right. Yep. For example. I see where you use the word experience, and we've been bandying this word about, right? Yeah. And I think that we've moved from a materialistic economy to an experiential economy, right? You'd agree with that. And then also, I've been thinking a lot more about how the suburbanization of America has disconnected us as individuals.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in society right now, especially in American society, with the political ills and stuff I think are happening, is because we've lost that sense of community. And people are yearning for that.
That's right.
Additionally, and I'm just going on and on here, but additionally, hotels, like you said, back in the day, they were something entirely different. Totally. They were community. It's where everybody went to the fancy restaurant. It's where people gathered. It's where all the important things happened if it wasn't happening in a church.
Correct.
Right? So all of these things together have left us with a giant hole that we need to fill. Yeah. And that's why I think that we're moving in this direction. And I like that you said the word opportunity, because it's really opening a whole new world of hoteliers out there to find success in new and interesting ways.
Yeah. We couldn't agree more, and I think that we have sort of three values. We always hit craft and culture are two of them, but community is one of them. And I think that that translates into a lot of different elements, from the community built around the group with which you're traveling, to community that's fostered with other groups while you're there, to the interactions with the staff, and then to Bode bringing in the local community into the project. And I think that that's the challenge right now, because when you're out building a hotel, you're really constrained by what the capital markets are going to kind of impose upon you. Yet what the guest wants is this authentic, community-driven experience, and really balancing those two is a huge, huge challenge.
So that's an interesting challenge that leads to opportunity, because you need to convince the people that are putting out the money that this is where we are heading and that they should be behind this. And I think some of the trouble that people have is getting finance for projects that aren't the same old cookie cutter select service hotel that's rather fungible at this point between a lot of the brands.
Exactly. That's 100% right. And the structure is a little bit broken for that, because the loan officer that you're dealing with for your construction loan, or the associate at the private equity firm, they're not really compensated in a way that motivates them to do something new. So that's why you see such a proliferation of select service and things of that nature. And while that certainly has its place, and it's a good business model because of the operating margins, but really the investors who are more forward-thinking and are able to look ahead and see where the guest is moving, I think are the ones who can capitalize on some of these opportunities. And they are out there.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I'm seeing a lot more brands that are starting to pop up that are attempting to focus on this. But
that's correct.
You seem to have a really fully realized vision. So I'd love to share with the listeners what the actual experience is like. It looks like it's very high design. Yeah. You've got cool social areas. I think you have like ping pong tables and stuff. But me just saying that doesn't really translate to what people are, how people are staying, and how you're fulfilling that sense of community.
Correct. Yeah. So I'll launch into it, and you steer me as you see fit.
Sure. And don't worry, I'm very good at interrupting.
I'm sure. I can tell. No. From a design perspective, we think that for a long time, America, being one of the younger nations, has brought a lot of its design from overseas, from Europe, from Spain, from Latin America, etc.
I think about traditional 5-star hotels, for example. Very European.
Very European. Whereas now, I think we're in this moment where we're sort of embracing America's culture, and so when we start our design, we really want to know what is the pulse of that city, what are the forward-thinking designers doing there, and how can we incorporate that into a boat. So that's kind of like the vibe. Then when we travel to places, we want to drink the local coffee. We want to know what the local artisan is making. We want to understand what's going on in that city. So we partner with local winemakers, coffee producers, etc., and we bring that into our food and beverage offering. Our staff, same thing. We hire locals. We train them on all these places so that when you arrive, they can educate you on what that city has to offer.
That is so important to me. I find it frustrating, and I may have said this before on previous episodes of this podcast, but I find it infuriating when I go to the front desk and I ask for a piece of advice, and a lot of times I get back the answer, "I don't know, I don't live here." Like, that's acceptable.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, part of our training is we actually, like, we're about to open another one in Chattanooga in April, and we're going to start taking the team out to these places. So not only do they have like sort of a sheet where they can tell you where to go, but they've actually been there and have ordered the burger or whatever it may be. From an experience standpoint, we have tried to create a model where we include everything we like in a hotel and we eliminate everything we don't like.
So what are some of the things that you don't like?
I don't like nightly cleans.
Right.
I just don't like the idea of someone being in my room when I'm not there. So we don't offer that. You can get that if you want to pay for it, a la carte. We'll do that. But we generally just clean at the end of your stay. And what that enables us to do is help deliver you a lower rate. Because for us, we're always when I travel, I want to be at the coolest, most relevant place that's close to where I need to be, that's at a price I can afford.
Right.
And so a lot of these higher-end boutiques and lifestyle hotels, while they are trendy, they're at a price point where a lot of people just can't go there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And the whole thing with the cleaning of the rooms is interesting. It's like one of those rules that we've always done it that way, so we should continue to do it that way.
Correct.
And I personally, as a hotel customer, I think has matured on this issue because it was so theoretically sacrosanct. You can't ever change it.
Yeah.
But then I started to realize my buddies and I, while we're on the road, we put on that "Do Not Disturb" sign all the time anyway.
Totally.
Because we want to be left alone.
Yeah.
So why do we need daily maid service? We don't.
No, I think one of the big challenges, it's similar to the capital markets that we talked about earlier. There's a certain fear associated with breaking the norm because you think that's going to hit your rate that you're comping against in the industry. And so I think that we're sort of the mindset, since we're already challenging everything, let's just go ahead and challenge everything. And let's not be scared to do it. So another example is we don't give room service, but we accept Uber Eats, DoorDash, and all these other things, which give you a much wider range of options anyways.
Right, and honestly, it's cheaper. And that's another one of those things.
Yeah.
I've had the fortune to stay in some 5-star hotels in my day. I happen to have been at one last week. I was very fortunate to be at one. But for me to get a hamburger delivered to my room, no joke, would have cost over $50. Right? Between the price of the burger and a drink and the taxes and the service fees and the you're a sucker fee and all of those other things that are on there. A lot of times I just would order in Chinese food and get that delivered and pay $20.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I see that too. Makes a lot of sense.
Correct. Trying to think of what else.
Well, let me say this. Going back to your other point of not looking to hit that rate that other people have. That's very interesting because that's, again, another sacrosanct measurement about how theoretically hoteliers are doing in a market. I think you're probably looking at it from more of a profit perspective based on each room stay or per customer.
That's correct. Yeah, and I think, look, don't get me wrong. Like, we want to,
of course,
we want to get the highest rate we possibly can, but when we start to have to make projects pencil because we're stepping up the rate for X, Y, and Z, we'd rather come in at a rate that's a little bit below our comp set with a service offering we know we can deliver on that will flow through sufficient capital to the bottom line and make us competitive.
So you also do have like single rooms if I wanted a traditional hotel
Correct.
room experience. So I just wanted to mention that for people who are like, oh, this doesn't make sense. So you have a mix of experiences that you can enjoy if you're going there. So I'm checking in with 3 of my hotel industry buddies, and we all want to have this kind of common experience away from everybody else. What's that like?
So you'll come in. The first thing you'll go into is what's called our hub. Every boat has a hub. That's really the heartbeat in the center of all the activity. It's usually a bar, serves craft coffee in the morning and spirits at night. You'll be greeted and oriented and sort of ushered to where your room is. We use a tech platform that basically gives you all your check-in information in advance.
Right.
So you can go right to your room. If you choose to, you don't have to stop by the hub. You don't have to talk to anybody. So a lot of our business travelers like yourself, sometimes they don't want to be bothered, and they know where to go, and they just go right to the room.
Well, I'm so close to the finish line. If I've been traveling all day, I don't want to have that one more pleasant conversation.
For sure, and particularly when there's a line, right? And it's all that work. You got to give your ID and your credit card, and then you get all that work just to get a little key, and let's just hope it works.
Right. That's why I get 2.
Yeah, that's right. So we bypassed that, and there's a few hiccups that you had to work out from a technical perspective, but we solved them, and we think guests really like it. And so we like to have the offering for the more efficient, well-traveled folks. They can go right in. For those who want a little bit more engagement, we have our staff ready and waiting there. For your 3 friends, so you'd walk into the bar, you would get oriented, you go up to your room, you'd enter, you'd have 3 separate rooms, ensuite bathrooms, a sort of well-designed, well-appointed but efficient kitchen, which is stocked with craft coffee and all the things you would need for the morning. Sort of a workspace, living room, TV, balcony.
So cool.
Some of our larger units have like backyards where you can.
Wow.
Because on multi-story properties, you can open some out to the backyard depending on the city. And then we like to have what we call our special move, which is sort of just something kind of fun and exciting in every different one. So in Palm Springs, we're doing sort of a very, very deep kind of pool experience. In Chattanooga, we're bringing in I don't know if you're familiar with duck pin bowling.
I am familiar with it. I played it in Canada.
Yeah. That's actually kind of the region that it's popular in, Pittsburgh as well.
I think is it the same as candlestick?
Yeah, they kind of use them interchangeably, and I think technically there's differences between the two, but for you and I, it's the same.
I think there's like 12 pins, and you use tinier balls.
You use tinier balls, smaller space, and we think that's a kind of fun, vintage feel for people to drink beer around and engage for no cost.
Oddly enough, bowling seems to be having an incredible resurgence in the United States, which is really surprising to me. And again, I think it goes back to that sense of community where you can hang out with a couple of people and do an interactive activity.
Yeah.
It's very highly focused, but allows you to eat and drink as well.
That's totally right. And I don't think anyone's really there to get another W on their scorecard at the bowling game, but they're really there to have fun. Eat and drink.
I am.
Oh, you are?
No,
well, I am too. So it's
I don't like to brag, but last time I bowled, I nearly got 3 digits in the score. Yeah,
nearly. That's really good.
Sorry to distract you. Please continue.
No worries. So that's sort of what we're about. We're starting to. I'll give you a little sneak peek into sort of a dinner experience we're going to start rolling out at everyone, and we call it Bode's Table.
Right.
And the idea there, back to the point on community, is that we will be inviting guests who are coming in groups as well as locals to a sort of outdoor, over-the-fire cooking experience where you're eating and engaging with basically strangers, and it'll be set outdoors, and in most of the locations the cooking will be on an open fire, and really the idea is to kind of bring people together in a way that like you're saying with suburban America, we tend to not be that way.
I have images of Netflix food specials where they're where they're in Italy cooking over the flame, and everyone's hanging out together and having a glass of wine and being involved in the whole situation. Right.
That's exactly the vibe, because we find that food, drink, people really translate to good memories and experiences. And I think the modern traveler is very open to that kind of stuff.
And I think that's what it really comes down to. We have so much technology in our lives that not only are we craving attention with other people, but I think simultaneously that food and drink is the last bastion where we really can all get together and have meaningful experiences. I don't ever see the restaurant industry, for example, vanishing because there's so much value to connecting with friends and strangers over good food.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of my disposable income is to travel and food.
Yeah, and you're. I'm gonna guess by looking at you, you'd probably be a millennial generation kind of guy.
I'm not a fan of that label, but
no,
I'm
not,
33. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I don't mind.
Well, I'm not a fan of those labels either, especially because I'm a Gen Xer and everybody's ignoring us. You guys get all of the attention now. But I want you to know, from the bottom of my heart, I'm trying to stop talking about millennials, and I'm on to Gen Z. So we're not going to have any.
They're an interesting generation.
Yeah, well, my kids are Gen Z. I have twin boys, and as we're recording this, they're about to turn 15, and the way they see the world is extremely different from the way you grew up seeing the world and from the way I grew up seeing the world as because I am a tech I'm not a technology native, a digital native as they call them. I had to adapt to it. You're probably somewhere in between.
Correct.
Right?
I got my first smartphone at 25.
Right.
So it's
but my kids, they grew up in an entirely different kind of digital universe. So what they're going to do is going to be very different than what you find interesting and what I find interesting. None of that has anything to do with a sense of community, what you're creating at Bode, but I can't help myself. I'm just feeling very blabby today. Maybe it's because of that cup of coffee you bought me. But all right. So I'm very curious about the sense of community and how you really set the stage to allow it to happen. You talked about the meal program that you're doing, but how do you translate? Like, we're here in a traditional hotel in the lobby right now recording this interview. So if any of you hear noise in the background, that's because we're in an active space. Yeah. But how do you actually bring people together as opposed to a lot of different things just happening and strangers don't really interact?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it starts with your team. Mm-hmm. I was talking to our VP of Ops yesterday, and I realized, as the CEO, it's very hard to actually influence the stay of the guests, but what you can influence is the people.
Right.
And so we place a high degree of emphasis on this element of community when we're training people. So we're actually incentivize them and rewarding them for engagement, and even for connecting people. So that's kind of on the employee side. So they're already cognizant, aware of that, and by virtue of choosing to work with us, they buy into that. So they are us. They're the way we like to. They travel the way we like to travel, and they live and breathe it. The second thing I think is in your events and your programming. Events are just key for hotels, and I think in a lobby like this, I think just a little bit of the decor, a little bit of the vibe, a little bit of the setup makes it less community focused.
Well, this hotel in particular was built before people started to realize that, right?
That's
so this is very traditional in that sense. And nothing wrong with where we're staying. Yeah. It's just very different from where I feel that we're headed, and you seem to already be.
Well, thank you for saying that. But I totally agree that this is a fine hotel, but I think it is about being more deliberate with that. So even the spaces we create, like for example, we took the TVs out of all of our rooms except the master, so that you never have a situation where 4 groups of people are in a 4-bedroom unit and they're all watching their TV in their room. We actually took them out, and there's kind of big debates there because a lot of people like to sleep with the TV on and so on and so forth. But we just thought we're way too attached to technology. Let's force people out, and so now when my team and I or my family and I stay in Bode, if you're watching TV, you're watching it together.
Right.
And then you basically go to your room to go to sleep, which is kind of how it should be. And you're sort of forcing that interaction. That's an example.
I don't like to brag, but we don't have a TV in our bedrooms because it's not healthy.
I love that. Yeah, we don't either.
Yeah, and honestly, when I'm in hotels, I see some of these beautiful TVs, and I rarely turn them on.
Yeah.
I'm much more, maybe I'm biased because we're doing a podcast right now, but I like listening to podcasts on my iPad,
Yeah, I do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a little noise and a little intellectual stimulation, but yeah, anyhow.
Yeah. So, all right. So, tell me a little bit about the design aesthetic. You talked about boutique hotel. I looked at it.
Yes.
I have trouble describing design dialogue. So, what is the kind of vibe that you're looking for when you're creating these spaces? Understanding that Nashville is Nashville. When you build the Orange County Hotel, it'll be Orange County,
Correct.
et cetera.
Yeah, I think it goes back. So it's. I think the general word that would describe it for the brand would be modern, but it's modern and true to each locale. So it changes. So for example, in Nashville, we had a 1985 built brick building. Which that's one of those unfortunate times. It's kind of like the teenage years. It's just like it's not working for anybody. And so we had a challenge.
I was a teenager in 1985, and it was not working for me. So I totally know where you're coming from.
And so what do we do? We painted it black, which I think gives it a statement of it's this kind of building on a hill in downtown Nashville. That made it pop right away. Mm-hmm. We then converted the carports into bars. Which
cool.
I think is cool, and ultimately what came out of that is that's kind of the Nashville. That's what they do there. The best experiences there are ones in which they took an existing building, they incorporated a lot of the elements that are already there. So it's an old industrial town. It's a river town. So you see a lot of steel, a lot of natural woods, a lot of rust, things of that nature, and that's all incorporated there. And we hired a really good group, Dade Architecture out of Nashville, and we basically just challenged them with that. Like we said, if you have one opportunity, two challenges. One is we said this is the third kind of product type, so don't think hotel, don't think home, think that new thing. And the second one was if you had one opportunity to show the world what your city is, do it here.
Cool.
And I think I'm really proud of what they did. They're great. They're great people, and it looks great.
It looks great, and I'll try to post some pictures with social media and stuff like that, and I'll work to get them. But the one component that we haven't really talked about, we've talked about creating the sense of community. Mm-hmm. We've talked about how your staff is very in tune to the outside community.
Correct.
So how do you seamlessly blend encouraging people to go out and have the experiences within the community while also making sure they come back and spend money in your hotel?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so I think part of that starts with where do we want them to spend the money. And so we deliberately have taken restaurants out. We don't have a restaurant. And I think part of that is because they're hard to run in hotels. I think the modern traveler today wants to go out and explore their city as opposed to stay in the hotel unless you're at a convention or something like that. So to that end, we kind of push them out for food services. We also are not the bar that's open till 2 a.m. And to that end, we are not the place that is just going to be slammed, through all hours of the night. What we are is kind of the best cup of coffee in town in the morning. Good pastries and things like that. So we want you there. Because our units do have multiple bedrooms and common areas, we have a bottle service, so you can get bottles of wine, you can get 12 packs of beer, bottles of whiskey, whatever. And then we have a great kind of strong happy hour that we text everybody when it starts, and we usually are giving a drink on the house or something like that to pull them down for that happy hour. So our happy hours usually have live music. They're very lively. And then it's kind of like everybody tends to go out into the city, and you see a lot of folks make it their last stop on the way home. So they're buying some ice cream sandwiches and a 12-pack or whatever before they go back. Yeah, and those are kind of the touch points.
So let me go into that a little bit. One of the things that I always encourage people to do is get people to come down to that bar with the free drink, because typically they're not just going to have the one, especially if they're in a pack.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So they'll get the first one, that'll get them started, then all of a sudden you get 2, 3, 4 rounds, whatever it might be, right? And the second part is a lot of times my buddies and I, when we have a night, we're done with going out. We want to hang out on the balcony and have that 12-pack. I just did it in January with a group of guys after going to the Alice conference in LA, right? Because we were all exhausted from it. We just wanted to spend time together, but still have that balcony and just kind of enjoy ourselves. So you're really hitting on all of these things that us older people like, and seems to be the trends for younger folks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on it right there. Those times with your friends where it's a 12-pack and it's a more informal setting, it's not so loud.
Right.
We actually have a lot of, so you have your in-unit spaces, and then we also have what we call our front porch, which is a converted carport that has like ping pong in it, has couches, and it's way more leisurely, but it's for that exact event.
Right.
We even have a truck that you actually tailgate on. We converted the bed so you can go up there with your 12-pack and your friends, and it overlooks the city.
That's awesome.
And you can just hang out there till whenever. But there's not going to be a ton of people around you. There's not going to be pounding music. It's kind of how we like to travel.
No, that's awesome. Before we wrap up, is there anything that we missed?
No, Glenn, you really hit me from all angles.
Yeah, this was.
I think we covered it all.
This was fun. We didn't cover one thing.
Okay.
Bode. I guess it's a play on abode.
It is.
Right.
Correct.
So where did the name come from? How did you figure that out? Because I guess you're trying to connote cozy, comfy.
There's a little bit of that. There's some of that connotation. Actually, a industry kind of brand strategist named Ken Fine helped come up with that. And yeah, the idea is we think that travel is increasingly getting integrated into our lives in such a way that if Bode does its job well, you should never feel out of place.
Right.
You should never truly be kind of longing for something that's familiar, but rather you should be kind of seamlessly integrating into a Bode in whatever city you're going into.
Right.
And that's really where it came from, removing those frictions, removing that feeling of a stranger, and really just seamlessly entering a city.
Well, I would say the future bodes well for you.
There
Sorry,
you go.
sorry
No,
again.
no.
Bookending it with horrible jokes. Yeah. So at the end of every show, I'd like to give everyone a good shameless opportunity for a plug. So plug yourself, your company, all that good stuff.
I'm gonna go with come to Bode Nashville. That was our first one. That's a special one. Do they get discounts if they come through Glenn?
They can.
All right.
Sure.
We'll work on something like that. And we're coming to Chattanooga, Palm Springs, Savannah, Greenville. Got a lot coming.
Awesome.
So come stay with us.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I look forward to getting down to Nashville with a group of my friends, going out, having some peg leg porker barbecue,
Absolutely.
then coming back and having a 12-pack in my backyard.
Glenn, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here, and thanks to all of you for listening. Be sure, if you're not subscribing to us, find us on iTunes, Google Play, and wherever your finer podcasts are found. And please give us that 5-star rating on iTunes. And if you do, give me that 5-star and a review on there. I will call you out on this show. So thanks for listening. And I will be back next time. That is, unless I decide to move to Nashville and force these guys to kick me out of their hotel. Thanks. See you guys next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.